You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Packers Talk. Do you want to experience the thrill of a Packers game at Lambeau Field? If so, be sure to get your game ticket from the longtime trusted source in Wisconsin, Ticket King. Visit their locations in Milwaukee and Green Bay. Just go to their website at ticketking.com. Again, that's theticketking.com.
This has done the Packers into the NFC Championship game. It is good! The Packers are moving on! Aaron Rodgers has done it again! And Mason Crosby, a hero for Green Bay.
You're listening to the best Packer radio show on the internet.
Cheesehead Radio.
Reach the audience back.
So I think that's the logical explanation.
Let's just, say that didn't happen.
It was a return to greatness. It was a return to form.
It's crazy. And he just kind of flew under the radar.
Get this out there so I sound good on Cheesehead Radio.
Yeah.
No negativity allowed, sir.
So I think that's actually going to be really exciting to watch. I don't think there's anything positive we can say. There's a lot.
Oh, you were looking for positive.
I guess that's what I meant. Positive, I think.
Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, the Green Bay Packers defeat the Dallas Cowboys. We are on our way to Georgia NFC Championship game. Can you believe it? Can you believe this? 3 months ago, we were like, let's fire everybody. Let's fire Mike McCarthy. Let's fire Dom Capers. Well, we can still fire Dom Capers. Well, let's trade Aaron Rodgers. Craziness. And here we are, deepest playoff run in a long time. We could win. We could go to the Super Bowl. We are 60 minutes away from Super Bowl XLM. What is it?
XLI.
51. There you go. We are there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is C.D. Angela. You can find my stuff over at Packers Talk and Cheesehead TV, and I am joined by the most amazing people and the most excited and enthusiastic people in the world. First of all, Michelle Bruton from Cheesehead TV and Bleacher Report. I've got Jayme Snowden of Cheesehead TV, and joining us in just a little bit will be the amazing Jersey Al Bracco. You have Packers Talk and Cheesehead TV. We're very excited. Sponsoring Packers Talk Network this year are going to be the fine folks at Ticket King. They've been selling Packers, Badgers, and other tickets in Wisconsin for just short of 25 years, and they've earned a reputation for excellent customer service and prices. Check it out. It's awesome. TheTicketKing.com. Oh, my gosh. You know what we should do? Do you know what we should do?
News.
I think we should do the Packer News.
Packers News.
Well, after that ebullient, buoyant, incredible intro by our one and only CD, I hate to bring down the vibe by starting off with injury news, but we have to. Part of the show, part of what we have to do, so we're going to do it. No one likes starting the weekly news with the laundry list that is the injury report, and unfortunately this week has more bad news to deliver. The worst, Jordy Nelson worked with the rehab group Wednesday instead of practicing. That's not promising for his availability on Sunday against Atlanta.
And many of us probably expected Nelson to miss Sunday's game. After all, the man broke multiple ribs very recently, but that's not it for hits to the wide receivers group. Devontae Adams also sat out of practice Wednesday with an ankle injury. He may not be able to practice until Saturday.
So while in an ideal world, no players would ever fall injured on any teams, if you're going to have some on your team, it can help your chances if there are some on the other team, too. The Falcons have placed defensive lineman Adrian Claiborne on injured reserve. He had 4.5 sacks, 14 quarterback hits, and 8 tackles for loss this season. So, needless to say, having him out Sunday makes Aaron Rodgers' life just a little bit easier.
And surely by now you've heard the insane report that the final play of the game against the Cowboys, Jared Cook's toe-tapping catch down the sideline that led up to Mason Crosby's walk-off field goal wasn't even a designed play call, but something Aaron Rodgers made up in the huddle like a kid drawing in the dirt in case he wanted another example of how insanely high Rodgers' football IQ is. There you go.
Well, speaking of football IQ, it's about that time in the season when NFL teams lose terrific assistants to other teams, and it sounds like that could happen with our own quarterbacks coach, Alex Van Pelt. According to a report Wednesday from CBS Sports' Jason LaCanfora, the Bills may pursue Van Pelt for their offensive coordinator job. Faced with the prospect of losing his quarterback coach since 2014, Aaron Rodgers was nothing but gracious. There's no reason his name shouldn't be out there for coordinator jobs right now, Rodgers said.
And speaking of having your name be out there, one Packers fan and Wisconsin native made the news this week for his decision to take his wife's last name upon marrying this June. Now, this is a little unusual, but that's not why the story is notable. His wife's last name is Packer. Hutlin Murphy, apparently that was his last name before, said, quote, he's looking forward to being called Mr. Packer.
But if anyone in Wisconsin deserves to be called Mr. Packer right now, it might be kicker Mason Crosby, who set an NFL record on Sunday by accomplishing something no kicker ever had to that point: make 2 field goals of 50 yards or longer in the final 2 minutes of a postseason game. Mr. Packer for the week, Mr. Packer for the month. How long can we keep this going?
I'm hoping for 2 more games. How does that sound? That'd be perfect. Finally, if you like the sight of that hole in the wall of the Packers facility that Giants wideout Odell Beckham punched after New York's loss in Green Bay, I have some bad news for you. The Packers have fixed it.
Lost to the sands of time. And that was your Packers News of the Week. Now it's time for your
Packer Tweets from Packer Tweets.
There's probably no talking head in the sports media more vilified and generally ignored by the Packers faithful than Fox Sports 1's resident winebag, Skip Bayless. Ever Cowboys supplicant and Aaron Rodgers troll, Packer Nation was able to celebrate not only an amazing victory over the Cowboys last week, but were able to hand Bayless a few slices of humble pie. Perhaps no one hit the nail more precisely than the Packer ranter, who posted a picture of the now completely unblemished wall and said, Skip Bayless was so mad the Packers won, he punched the wall. The evidence.
Well, Bayless is one thing, but we are awfully proud of our Packers Radio Network team of Wayne Larrivee, who appeared on our show earlier this season, and The Rock, Larry McCarron. Certainly, many of us chose to turn off Joe and Troy to listen to announcers who prefer to cheer right along with us, as opposed to potentially trolling us. Kyle Cousineau nails the experience down to a T when he said, quote, there is no better sound than hearing Larry McCarron yelling yes at the top of his lungs while Wayne Larrivee is making a huge call.
I did. I will admit. I turned down the volume on the TV and turned up it on my computer. I mean, I was delayed, but I was like, nope, this is what I'm going to listen to. So I agree, Kyle. Well, while the Packers are on a playoff run, some things never change for Mike McCarthy and the Packers. Yes, we'll admit that the media and fans keep demanding answers for something the organization likely don't know the answer to. Yet, Diesel Joe nails the responses we continually get from Mike at the mic with reporters. Hey, Packers, is Jordy going to play? Packers, yeah, probably, but we doubt it. But maybe, but there's a chance, but no, but yes.
Gotta love it. But the tweet of the week goes to the hero of the game, Mason Crosby. Not only the guy who hit the game winner in a game that will perhaps go down as one of the classics in postseason history, but also became the first player in NFL history, as we said, to kick 2 50-plus yard field goals in the last 2 minutes of a playoff game. When he added that his sister-in-law's battle with cancer was his inspiration, every Packers fan in the world wanted to run out onto the field and hug Mason. But luckily, 50 of his teammates beat us to it. And if you haven't seen that GIF yet, it's incredible. This week's Tweet of the Week isn't long or funny, but it comes from the heart of a guy who clawed his way back from nearly getting cut a few seasons ago. Accompanied by the Packers' official replay of his game-winning field goal, Crosby simply stated, quote, what an amazing feeling. Love this team. #GoPackGo.
We love you and your team right back, Mason, and that's why we do this show every week. And that was certainly your Cheesehead Radio Tweet of the Week.
Tweet of the Week.
You really built that up, Michelle. Holy moly.
I'm not gonna lie though, I'm a little sad that Devontae Adams he went to Jarrett tweet did not make the Tweet of the Week. I know it doesn't read well, but there was something hilarious to me about how funny Devontae Adams must have thought that meme also was, and like the line was, and how excited he was that he was just like, I'm just going to tweet out no picture, no nothing, just hashtag he went to Jared. And there's just something like just so personable and relatable about that I'm like, he's really excited. Jared could caught the ball. That made me happy.
It's so true. Whenever he does something big, my husband, who was a St. Louis Rams fan, so he has a very tortured relationship with Jared Cook, will sit there on the couch and sing, "It Could Only Be Jared," which just cracks me up every
Oh, dear
time.
Lord. That is awesome. What do you think, guys? Should we get into the playbook?
Let's do it.
Yes.
Let's do it.
The playbook.
I don't know if you guys heard the news, but the Packers won. It was a playoff game, too. No, I'm serious.
I wasn't sure.
So,
I thought
Mason
maybe that
Crosby.
field goal went wide left.
Did it not look like that? Oh, my gosh.
As soon as he did it, I was
freaking
like,
out. 'Cause it's like,
"Woo!"
we could go to overtime. It's fine. I mean, what possibly bad could happen to the Packers in overtime in the playoffs? Sure, whatever. And just that second, you see the ball just going outside the goalpost, the left goalpost. You're like, oh, okay. And all of a sudden, it curves back in. Did it not look like the refs were signaling it was good before it even went through? Did anyone else notice that? It's like you're watching, and all of a sudden they're down there. They're already saying it. It's like it's not even through yet. That's awesome. Great.
See, I didn't notice the refs, but because I was moderating the blog because I was at my brother-in-law's house, and he smartly, and I think partially for me, put up a second TV in the room right next to the living room so that, like, when you're sitting in certain spots, you can see both. But if you have DirecTV, your non-main DirecTV box is always a couple, like, seconds behind, like, just one. Like, it's just getting the main signal to the second box takes that, like, extra split second. So we had to pause the first TV so that it would match my TV because I was on the second one. And so I was even, like, the extra second behind that I normally am, just living in Cincinnati. So I see it go up. I see it start to do the little, like, oh, God, it's going to miss. And all of a sudden, like, I'm staring at the TV, but in my periphery, like, I can just see all the comments come up on the blog, like, oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God, oh, my God. And I'm like, no, it's going to turn. Like, that tick lasted forever for me. So it was like, that's a no, wait, it's going to be a yes. Like, I knew it. My husband's standing next to me all tense. So it was like, I had a split extra second before everyone else in the room knew it was going to go in when I was like, nope, it's good. We're gonna
Don't worry, guys.
I can see the future. It's good.
Kind of ruins the fun almost, doesn't it? It's like, oh, fine. They won. Just to celebrate.
No, it helps.
Oh, go ahead.
It helps in those really tense situations where you're like, oh, God, like, I can't watch this third down. They're taking forever to snap the ball. I'm going to die. I'm going to have a heart attack. Somebody call 911. Oh, no. Because it's not like plays in advance. The week when NBC and DirecTV were fighting and I had to stream the game, it would rotate between 1 to 4 plays behind. That was impossible.
Yeah.
Like, that was annoying. Like, oh, interception. Oh, wait, Brian, come back in here and watch this play. Something might happen. You don't want to miss it. That wasn't as fun. But, like, the split second I can live with.
Yeah, it's such a different thing, too, with, like, regular season versus playoffs, because, like, sometimes there's a little bit of lag. I have Comcast, and it'll be a few seconds behind, and I do the live blog for Bleacher Report, so I'm always on Twitter, like, pulling tweets and stuff into the live blog. And so if it's the regular season and you see a gazillion people tweeting, like, yes, got it, oh, then I'm like, oh, okay, something's about to happen, like, okay, I got to get ready, I got to put that in. But in the playoffs, like, you don't want to get a heads up. You just want to see it unfold in real time with everyone else and just live in that emotion. So make sure all of your streams are up to date, people. No lag.
Well, and it's also different because, like, the people, there are sometimes, and Wes Hawkwitz always used to be, I don't know what magic gift he had, but he was always the first one of the beat reporters back when he was still on the beat before he worked with Packers to get the plays out. Like, I don't know if his thumbs were just magically quicker than everybody. We always joked with him that it was in his hair because he has fantastic hair. But so like when you're auto pulling a collection, like when you're auto pulling all of the beat reporters' tweets, his would always come through first. And there's just that, the delay that live TV always has now, in case, we see Janet Jackson's nipple again. Anybody who's live, if they somehow manage to beat those 3 seconds, they tweet it out before anybody sees it. And Wes, it happened all the time with him, so much that people were like, I can't follow him. Like, during the games, it's too much. It's like, and so it's very interesting, like, just the different delays based on who's broadcasting the game and how quick people are in the press box when they're tweeting things out.
Wes is a millennial, too, so I have a feeling...
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Thank you. Just like you and me, Michelle. I would guess that he sits with his little microphone on, and he's literally just talking it as it happens. And then he just gets sent a hit send. That's what I'm guessing happens.
He's voice texting.
Seriously, because I sit there with my thumb just going one letter at a time, boop, 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 and he has to talk.
I don't know, man. Okay, I think it's the hair.
What's up with the hair?
It used to be a lot poofier. It was very fantastic. Now that he's like with the Packers, he's much more like, I am Packers. I'm more. He's had that like, I don't know. He has magic hair. Really, go back and look at old pictures of him. You'll understand. You'll be like, that is fast tweeting hair. That is hair that can see into the future.
These are things that I normally don't think about with the Packers.
I am so gonna send him this link. Because this is the playbook. Wes Hotkowitz's hair.
That is the title of our next show. How does that sound?
It's not like one of the most amazing games we've all ever seen didn't just happen. And we finally, got rid of all the demons from the 90s. Nope, it's Wes's hair time.
It's really nice when you have a nice, positive game like this. We can just sit back and talk about Wes's hair for a while.
We were just biding our time until the one and only Al Bracco could join us. We didn't want him to miss the excitement of talking about the game.
Well, nice to be here, guys. Sorry I'm late, but what's this talk about Wes Hotkowitz's hair? What are we doing here? Did I call the wrong podcast? What is going on?
We've gone off the rails.
You've lost control, CD?
I know. We needed you here. There's just too many millennials in one room without you here, Al.
All right. So what's the deal with his hair?
No one knows.
It can see into the future.
It's magic hair, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Segue.
Meanwhile.
Yes. Let's skip ahead to the catch, though. Obviously there's no field goal if Jared Cook does not make that catch. And the idea that Aaron Rodgers has not only stated he drew this play up in the dirt, but he also says he's never done that before, which I have a little trouble believing. But the idea that you would just say, okay, everyone go this way, and Jared, you go all the way across the field, and I'm going to throw the ball literally out of bounds, and you're going to catch it out of bounds and drag your 2 feet. I mean, how do you plan that, and how do you make that work?
Well, and how many times do we see that similar kind of play, like a crossing route to the sideline, not work for them? I mean, so many times, especially when they maybe want to get a little greedy and go for 10 to 20 yards rather than 4 to 6. And, we see him throw it and he has to throw it away or it's out of bounds. And, it's just all of the things that had to come together. And then even if the ball gets where it gets, the fact that he actually contorted his body in a way that if I did that, I would tear my ACL. I mean, my body wouldn't work that way.
He does the yoga. He must, because it's the only way your knees could take that.
Yeah, he goes to the same yoga class as Nick Perry.
CD, have you come up with a name for the catch yet? Because I know you like to do those type of things.
Yes, you actually missed it during the news.
What was his name? What would your name for the catch be?
It was Michael Jackson. Because it's pretty much going to look like Billy. We'll call it the Billie Jean catch. How does that sound?
You need to go up 2 octaves.
Yeah.
You guys can do that octave thing. That's
yeah, exactly. We'll let the ladies handle that, right?
Yes. Go ahead. Ladies, go ahead. Give it a shot.
I kind of want to
do the sound effect.
I'll pass on doing it.
Ooh,
I like that.
That was good.
That was pretty good, yeah.
That was good. That's my name, Pat Chow.
Okay.
But don't ask him to say it out loud.
No problem.
Well, I think that the catch obviously was just amazing. The one thing I guess that is concerning for some Packer fans is the Packers had built up quite a little lead, and it should have felt comfortable. And I don't know if anyone felt all that comfortable with it, just because it's the Packers and it's Dom Capers and the defense. But obviously there was issues, I think, and especially as we got into that third and fourth quarter, where we just honestly did not feel like we were going to be able to stop them if they came down the field. I want to say at one point there was 4 minutes left in the game, and I was like, okay, let's just take the ball down the field, hold on to the ball for 4 minutes, kick a field goal, and walk off. And in that time, we went down the field, kicked a field goal. They went down the field, kicked a field goal. And then we went down the field and kicked a field goal. If we could have just held on to the ball for 4 minutes, we wouldn't have had that extra drama. So just injuries and secondary, obviously still a concern. But what's your feelings on the defense moving forward, especially against a high-powered offense like Matt Ryan's Falcons?
Well, it's really a schematic problem, too. And, people... There's kind of always that moment on Twitter where you're like, oh, has Dom Capers moved into prevent defense yet? Yep, there it is. And, listen, I'm not a defensive coordinator, but in some ways I can see his mindset there. I can see why he goes there. I mean, if you've got someone like, Dak Prescott or Eli Manning who can easily throw a 40-yard touchdown pass, you really can't tempt them into if they score from the middle of the field, I mean, the game could be over. And so I get kind of the idea of moving off a little bit, playing, a little bit farther back, trying to prevent that big play. But when you get these offenses who can just dink and dunk down the field and just kill you with 5, 8, 12-yard gains, often you get the same effect. It just takes a little bit more time off the clock. And I think that's why the Packers have really been able to win so many of these games. But oh God, if there had just been 2 more minutes on the clock, they probably wouldn't have. And so it's a risky schematic choice that he makes, and it works, 80% of the time. But it just really doesn't make you feel very good when you're watching that score, just that lead just disintegrate.
So, a quick story. I'm watching the game with a bunch of Giants fans. Okay, I had to go to a birthday party. Family members who are Giant fans, who obviously knew the Giants weren't going to be playing that day, scheduled their mom's 70th birthday party that day. So, luckily, there was a TV in there, so everybody got to watch the game while we're at this birthday party at this restaurant. So, the entire time, it starts out great, 21-3. All these Giant fans are patting me on the back and wanting to shake my hand. I'm like, get the hell away from me. This game is going to be tied. Oh, come on, they're blowing them. I'm like, this game is going to be tied before the game is over, okay? So here we go, and the Packers do what the Packers do, and the game is tied. And they're all looking at me like, how did you know? I'm like, well, I know my team.
Experience.
Doesn't mean I don't think they're going to win, but I just know the game is going to be tied at some point. So it's to be expected. Michelle, I completely agree with your explanation of why it has to be done. Everybody gets themselves up in arms over this, and with the personnel that they have, especially with the injuries, what else are you going to do? What are your other options other than just try, hope and pray you can make them dink and dunk and waste time and take time off the clock? So I really don't have a problem with it in the situation that they're in. In the past, there have been far more egregious uses of this type of prevent defense. This was not one of them, in my opinion. I was perfectly fine with it.
So I've started to think, because every time you say the only thing the prevent defense does is prevent you from winning. But we keep doing it, and we keep winning. So, because I started to say that in my head, and as, the live blog's getting all upset about it, and it feels like we're doing it again. But you're right. I do want them to take as much time and keep things over the middle. And yeah, if the game was maybe 5 minutes longer, we wouldn't win them. But if the game was also 10 minutes shorter, we would have won by a lot more. The game is as long as it is. We played that, and as frustrating as it is, and as terrifying as it is, and yes, I don't think we should keep blowing leads like that, but when you're playing really good teams, they're also going to play really well. And so I just feel like the prevent defense prevents you from winning, except for the previous 8 games. Like, it's worked.
Right, and there's a reason
we can't deny that.
Right, and there's a reason he's the one who gets paid to make that choice, and we don't. Like we're talking about with the timing. Like, it's not a coincidence that he starts playing them 5 yards off and going into it maybe, beginning of the fourth quarter, end of the third quarter, and it kind of gets them where they need to be approximately 15 to 17 game minutes later. Like, he knows what he's doing. It unfortunately also depends on player execution, which doesn't always follow his plan, but, the guy's pretty smart at the end of the day. He's won a lot of these.
And I just think there's only so much you can do, especially with, Morgan Burnett going down and then Gunter being hurt for a couple plays and then coming back and not doing that well. He's not getting the help. I mean, there really is only so much you can do with what we have out there.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to keep picking up more guys off other people's practice squads at this point, even though we probably could and should. I mean, even wide receiver right now is looking a little spotty. Isn't that kind of funny that we've been so worried about the defense, and all of a sudden we're looking at the possibility of no Jordy and no Devontae next week? You're looking at Randall Cobb and,
Geronimo.
A couple guys.
That scares me.
It does, and it really does make us appreciate Jared Cook, who's finally come into his own and is actually playing well. But, yeah, you typically think, you put 3 good receivers out on the field. I mean, I don't want to say that Geronimo's not good, but obviously there's a talent gap between he and Jordy and Randall. And if you have all 3 of those guys out there and you give Aaron Rodgers those 5, 6, 7 seconds he's been getting sometimes, there's no reason we can't carve up any defense. But Jeff Janis, Davis, you're looking a little bit more at that. It could be a little bit scary. So, dead space that will be edited out later. Let's take a look at this.
What is the? I'm sorry, I'm really behind on the Packers news today. What's the word on Morgan Burnett?
Stat girls.
We didn't include him in our recap at the top of the show. But if I'm not mistaken, I believe that he just didn't practice today. But that, there's no indication about whether he'll be able to go on Sunday.
It's still unclear.
No, he did not practice today.
No.
But
he also, Allison and Janice were also on the injury report today.
Yeah, they were.
This is nice.
All 4 of them. Yeah. So
maybe we won't have any wide receivers. That, it'll be a new set.
Well, and I've said this before, too, there is the possibility of taking Ty Montgomery and putting him back out if they need to.
Yep.
I mean, they can put him out, and he has done that where he's split out wide, which is an interesting extra weapon for Ty Montgomery. He starts in the backfield. He's a threat there, but, moves out, moves into the slot, and he runs a route, and he's pretty effective from that point, too.
And this isn't going to be a game where we're going to see each team have, 100 rushing yards. I don't think anyone's going to fall, or I don't think anyone's going to get so ahead that they start running. And I don't think with these 2 quarterbacks that either coach is going to be calling, 2 run plays on every series. I think it's just going to be a shootout.
That it could be. And it wouldn't be surprising if it's not. I'm sorry. It just seems to be the way that we always way things go. We predict it one way, and it's going to end up being a 14-10 game. Who knows? Interesting question here, just in the queue, and I'll throw it out there to whoever wrote it. But when do you think the turnaround actually started for the Green Bay Packers this year? I made a tweet this week after the game where I remember there was a big thing, the Packers 3-4 wins into this streak, and everyone says, "Oh, it's like 2010." And everyone was like, "No, this is not like 2010. This is nothing, absolutely nothing like 2010." It's a lot like 2010 right now, guys. It was really dark, and all of a sudden, boom, we're just pulling off all of these victories, especially some at home, but obviously on the road in the playoffs and going again to Atlanta like we did in 2010. Where do you see this turnaround? Where do you see this breaking point where the Packers went from being, I guess, lovable losers to, perhaps the favorite team right now in the NFL playoffs? Was it Washington? Was it Philadelphia? When did it change, and why do you think it changed?
Well, I brought up the question, so I can go first just to kind of explain sort of what I was thinking when I wrote it. And my kind of theory was, if you look at the Washington game, which was Week 11, which it was a loss. I mean, it wasn't sort of the beginning of their win streak. But there was one important thing that happened in that Week 11 game, and it was that Jared Cook played for the first time in 6 weeks. And he had 105 yards, and he had a touchdown, and he was averaging almost 20 yards per reception. And I think that, people like to say they're like, Aaron Rodgers called his shot, and he said they were going to run the table, and then they ran the table. And that's great, but he's not magic. Like, at the end of the day, something else schematically, talent-wise, had to change on the field to sort of get them where they are. And I honestly think getting Jared Cook back on the field was kind of the big turning point.
Anyone else?
I feel like I just want to say ditto. I mean, I think it's hard for me just because I kind of have a weird personal connection to this. So I was had a very bad week, the week of the Washington game. My husband's a Washington fan. We were expecting to watch that game and be very happy, and we weren't. We were just, bummed out. Neither one of us were excited about that game. And so the Packers just lost that game horribly. And I just sat there after the game when, life's going to be awful forever now. And so I kind of, break my life into the Washington game and then everything after it. So, that day for me was very just pivotal in my life. But I realized that the Packers don't actually play based on how I'm feeling or what I want them to do. And I agree with Michelle that it's getting Jared Cook into the lineup, actually really fully integrated in the lineup. He played a couple of the games before he got injured, but it wasn't a huge role. We've all seen this for Rodgers most of his career. He does best when we've got the tight ends. That's the kind of offense we have. And when we don't have the tight ends, there's a lot of forced spreading it around and just really trying to push it to people who might not schematically be open, who might not have the skills to break open, and it's stressful. And Rodgers gets stressed, and he gets mad at everyone, and it's just not a good way for this offense to function. Because it seems like we got Jared Cook back, and that's kind of the same time when the defense, every week was oh, this person's not going to play anymore. Oh, this week it's this person. This week it's this person. And so they just keep dropping like flies, yet just the return of that one thing in our offense has really helped the team as a whole.
And, I'll give credit to Jared Cook, and I think he's been a tremendous addition. And I've always said when you have that big pass-catching tight end, it's a tremendous asset to any offense, particularly a Packers offense. But I think a lot of it really comes down to Aaron Rodgers. And the reality is, throughout most of the 2015 season, especially with Jordy being injured and out for the season, we saw a very different, I think, as Jayme alluded to, a very different Aaron Rodgers. Not just maybe an attitude and yelling at people. He simply wasn't accurate. And we talked about this week after week after week. Where's his accuracy? He's a little high here. It's behind the receiver here. That was something that happened all of last season and really into about the first 4 or 5 games this season, to where people were really saying he was off. Even before the winning streak started, Aaron had started turning it around. And I think when you look at him now, especially these past couple of weeks, the confidence with which he's throwing the ball, he is putting that ball on pins right now, on the eye of a needle. He is putting it right back where only his receiver can catch it. He is putting it in between, at times, 3 or 4 sets of hands, and somehow it finds its way to the receiver. that was Aaron Rodgers' forte for most of his career from 2011 to 2014, and we saw a huge drop-off last year, huge drop-off the first 4 games this year. Suddenly that guy is back. Why? I don't know, but I don't care because he's back.
Isn't it kind of funny, though, that there's not a bunch of articles of, like, why is Aaron Rodgers back? And think of the myriad of different headlines we saw, that even things we talked about over the past, the slump in this season, the last season of just difficult games of, like, what's wrong with Aaron Rodgers? Oh, it's his girlfriend. Oh, it's his family. Oh, it's his footwork. Oh, it's the schemes in the offense. We had everything. I think Demoski had these are the 5 things that could be wrong. And it's just, random things. Like, the lunch, the cafeteria stopped serving this for lunch. It was everything that we could think of. And now we're like, hey, he's back. I don't care why. There's no, he's back because his girlfriend's great, or he's back because, he doesn't talk to his family, and that's way happier for him. Or he's back because he doesn't care about his feet work. None of that exists, but it really, was overwhelming when he was off.
Well, and it speaks so much to just the idea that we hold this man to such crazy high expectations. My favorite thing to say to people when they bring up Aaron Rodgers' slump is I'm like, can you point out the slump to me? Because, yes, there's a period where he's still a very good day for many, many, many NFL quarterbacks. And I just think it's so funny that when he starts playing below our crazy high expectations of him, it's all, like you said, Jayme, all these think pieces of oh my God, what's wrong? It could be this. But when he starts doing what he's been doing, which is not normal, it is incredibly abnormal. We're like, oh, yeah, okay, that's what we expected. This poor man is just...
Yeah, the think pieces really should be going on right now. What magical beans is Aaron Rodgers eating today? He's now superhuman. We really should be questioning how that happened.
Right.
And just being a typical Packers fan as I am, at the beginning of the season when he was struggling, that State Farm commercial, your stuff is on fire, better call the fire department. I thought that was the stupidest commercial on the planet. And now I think it's hysterical. Now I think it's the funniest thing I've ever seen because Aaron Rodgers is doing really well. So that's funny now. Isn't that crazy how we do react to stuff like that? It's like, oh, Aaron Rodgers is only passing at an 84 passer efficiency rating. That was a good day for Favre. Come on.
I had the same reaction to the other State Farm commercial where he gets mad at the bug and he's like, not this house. And I would sit there and be yeah, this house. You don't protect this house. I get really bitter every time I see that commercial. If only you cared that much. Maybe we should put a fly on the field and it would help. And so I had a very similar reaction to State Farm commercial.
In fact, Michelle, I think it was you. It was you last week, Michelle. I think you tweeted that and said, your stuff is on fire. Did you not tweet that? And I was like, Michelle, don't. No, that commercial. I was like, no.
So there was Michelle one, I think it might have been the Giants game, but there was he had that crazy throw to Cobb. And so I just tweeted in all caps, better call the fire department.
I remember that tweet.
So good places for the Packers right now. It's awesome. Switching gears a little bit, we just 2 players here, I think, that come up as we start talking about contracts for next year. Jared Cook. Do you guys think this guy has earned an extension on his contract? What is his contract right now? Do we know? Was it a 2-year?
No, it was
1
year.
It was a 1 year. I don't know the financials, but it was just 1 year.
1 year prove-it deal.
Mhm. And I thought that was all it was going to be when they signed him. I was like, yeah, okay, that'll give us 1 more season, and then they'll go ahead and just draft a tight end this year. But I don't know. Why mess with a good thing?
They have to extend him because we don't have good luck finding tight end. We found one. Let's keep it around. We're not going to draft a good one. That's just not a thing that we do. Like, Finley was just something we happened upon, didn't last very long, and was inconsistent. We got it. Like, this is the Mirage in the desert. We're actually here and there's water. You don't leave.
This is a very good year in the draft for tight ends, I will say that. If they're ever going to dip their toe in the water early, this would be the year.
We could draft one, and they could learn from Jared Cook instead of learning from, just watching film of other teams.
Yeah, the question is how much value will Cook have from other teams? He's extremely happy here, according to him. He'd love to stay here, according to him. But then again, we're not in contract or free agent season. When that happens, all bets are off. So I think the Packers will try to bring him back. But as always, Ted will try to do it at his price. And, sometimes that works out. But more often than not, it doesn't. So I'd love to see him stay and draft a tight end, as you said, Jayme, and go from there.
Okay, so Jared Cook signed a 1-year, $2.75 million, and included an $825 signing bonus, $825 guaranteed. Yeah. In 2016, Cook will earn a base salary of $1.425. The bonus is the $825 roster bonus, $475 workout bonuses, all that stuff. So.
Would a 3-year, $12 million do it?
For Cook? Probably.
I'm not his agent.
For Ted?
For Cook.
I think it really, but I think he's like, yeah, okay. Well, and I think the thing that's funny is that I think it really depends on how far the Packers make it now. Because, look, let's knock on some wood, but if they win some Super Bowl rings, Cook might be like, okay, I got my ring in my very first postseason ever. That was kind of my only dream, so I'm just going to go get as much as I can get to retire off of. He might just be like, all right, just whoever will pay me the most. And we've seen in the past that there's kind of this Aaron Rodgers effect where pass catchers who maybe turn out to be not, incredible elsewhere, Greg Jennings, play with Aaron Rodgers, and that kind of inflates their value, and then they can go make some pretty good money elsewhere. So in some ways, if they win it all, maybe Cook is gone just because, he won't make as much as he might want to make. But, yeah, if they get, if they lose in the championship round or even in the Super Bowl, he'd be crazy to leave. Even if Ted said, hey, we'll give you another 1-year deal for $3 million, take it. You could win a ring. I mean, it's a no-brainer. So, I don't know. That's sort of my thought process if I were Jared Cook. But I'm not, and we don't really know what he and his agent will want.
I think it's interesting how the free market system really plays out in very drastic fashion in professional sports in general. But here's a guy like Jared Cook who 9 weeks ago, most of us would have just said, let him go. And we wouldn't have cared. And in just 8 games, his stock has risen so high. We're like, yeah, let's give him $3 million. Let's give him $4 million a year. And I guess the other interesting part of that, the other side of it, I was just reading an article today that Sam Shields, the Packers could dump $9 million off their salary cap by letting him go this year. Now, Sam Shields is a guy who no more than 2 years ago was our only cornerback. I mean, he was the man. He was the shutdown corner, hero from 2010, 2011, even as a young player. Is this the guy? I mean, is there a chance you want to keep him along, or is this also as much of a no-brainer as Jared Cook?
Seeing how the secondary has fared without him, I don't know if it's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like using the phrase no-brainer, though, is a little bit interesting when it comes to Sam Shields because it might not 100% be up to the Packers or Sam Shields. In fact, it might be up to his brain and the doctors.
It's a little bit of irony there.
Yeah.
It might have to think about it okay, they're saying he could play again, but is that a cost he wants to take? Is that a cost, how much money do the Packers want to put into it if even, and I'm a big proponent, there's no minor concussion, but a minor head or neck hit could really just be, you're done. Is that, Packers are always very cautious when it comes to that stuff. So I don't think it just, within Sam's case, has to deal with how the secondaries looked and how we think Sam could play. It's a lot more goes into that one.
How much do you think, in general, because you know that most NFL players will take out an insurance policy to protect themselves in a case perhaps not unlike Sam Shields, where if his career is over due to injury, you're looking at some of the things like Kaepernick, $7.5 million, and who was the other guy? Leonard Fournette, two $10 million policies taken out on himself. So maybe the money isn't a huge deal for Shields, and maybe that's not as difficult for him to walk away from. But I think the Packers, if you're looking for money for Cook, I suppose that's one place. But I guess it's just one of those things you look at, too, and it's like Shields was in such a great high regard, and now it's like, well, yeah, we'd love to have you back, but it's too bad.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly half a season, how much can change.
Exactly. Last topic here before we get into our Hot Pockets, and I think these are very interesting topics for me, so I'm really interested in hearing your opinion on it. First of all, Mike McCarthy announced earlier this season that he is a great football coach. We all kind of raised an eyebrow when he said it. I believe some of us maybe even mocked it a little bit. But given where he is right now, are you ready to assent and say, yes, Mike McCarthy is a great football coach? Read somewhere, might be wrong, I read somewhere, I was going to put it in the tweets and I didn't. He now has more wins in the postseason than Vince Lombardi.
I think I did see a tweet that said he had crossed the record.
I don't think I saw the one where he passed, but I feel like the one where he was tied at, what was it, like, when he was tied was after the Giants game. That's when I feel like I saw it. So I would assume then I just didn't see the one after Dallas. I will Google now.
Stat girl. There you go. So is he a great coach? I mean, do you buy into that now, or is he, I don't know.
Well, he didn't use the word great. He didn't use the word great coach, right? He said he was a highly successful football coach.
Highly successful.
And, yeah, for a coach who has been to the playoffs 8 years in a row, can anybody argue with that? Absolutely not. That's being highly successful.
Mm-hmm.
Not being great, being highly successful.
So let me ask you this, then. Is he great? Is he a great coach for
No.
the Green Bay Packers? Do you put him in the same class as a Lombardi, a Lambeau, a Holmgren? Has he reached that point? As
a Lombardi, no. As
Lambeau?
A Holmgren, well, I don't think it's fair to compare to Lambeau. That was just way too different.
Different era.
Yeah.
Different era.
Way too. I mean, so was Lombardi, but still, it was much closer to where we are now than Lambeau. The real interesting one is Holmgren. I'd put him on the same level as Holmgren. I would. I'd say he's right there. I wouldn't call Holmgren a great coach. He had good years here. He was highly successful, just like Mike McCarthy. Although you could make the argument that McCarthy has been more highly successful than Holmgren has been. So I think you have to, you have to go with that. But no, I wouldn't call him great. I do reserve great for the likes of Vince Lombardi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the word great implies almost too much of like a value judgment, because highly successful, all you really have to do is just look at the win-loss record. But when you get into great, that's about more than just wins. That's about, did your schemes change the face of the NFL? Are you just the most incredible situational play caller? Do you always have the killer play to just put away your opponent right there on your stat sheet or on your play call sheet? And, I think that we can all sort of agree about McCarthy that he obviously is an incredible motivator of men. I mean, he gets his players in the headspace they clearly need to be in each week. I think that his, film study through the week and his game plans are always pretty solid, but I think we can all agree that he's not really the best actual in-game play caller of all time, and in fact, that's why he gave it up temporarily last season. And so I think that kind of takes him out of the great category, only because there are so many coaches who just, can call. I mean, look at Bill Belichick, and he's a more defensive-minded coach, obviously, but the games he calls are just beautiful sometimes. And
I think McCarthy isn't really in that same realm. But maybe great isn't a fair word. He's extremely good. He's successful. He's desirable. He's someone I probably wouldn't want the Packers to fire anytime soon, just knowing kind of the other talent that's out there on the market, seeing some of the names that, I mean, the Rams have a 30-year-old kid coaching them now. So I'll take McCarthy over the 30-year-old kid any day. But
yeah, I think, Michelle, I think you touched on something really important there. Is like, a great coach is someone who leaves a mark on the game itself, who isn't just good with their team.
Mm-hmm.
And when Al was listing at, like, Lombardi, Lambeau, Holmgren, as, you know, Al, when you got to Lombardi, I was like, no, like, McCarthy's not there. And when you got to Holmgren, I went, no, oh, wait. Like, I think I have this nostalgic view of Holmgren and so amazing, but Holmgren went to one Super Bowl, won it, and then went to a Super Bowl and lost it. Holmgren went to Dallas a whole bunch and lost a lot. So,
yep.
You know, and after that Super Bowl loss, I mean, Ron Wolf's like, we're a one-year wonder. I mean, Ron Wolf took the greatness that I thought we had and reduced it to we were just good for 1 year. So in that mindset, Holmgren was good for 1 year. You know, like that was his great year, was his successful year was that one. Mike McCarthy had that successful year. And he's had years, just like Holmgren did, of getting to the championship game and getting close, having really gut-wrenching losses in the playoffs. And so I think that is comparable. And so I would liken him to Holmgren. And not great. I reserve the great coaches for very few people. But Vince Lombardi had 9 playoff wins. Mike McCarthy now has 10. However, Vince Lombardi has 1. McCarthy has 7. So make of that with what you will.
McCarthy actually has a slightly better winning percentage in the playoffs than Mike Holmgren. Holmgren was 13-11 in playoffs, and McCarthy is now 10-7.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good comparison, a good level to put McCarthy at.
Sure. Out of curiosity, and just totally off beat with it, just because I think it's a neat discussion with the whole great coach thing. Post Lombardi, I mean, because let's think more modern era. Are there coaches that you would put into that classification, maybe even anyone who's coaching now? Would you guys put Bill Belichick into that classification of a great coach?
Absolutely. He might be one of the best coaches to ever coach any sport ever, I think.
Most wins ever for an NFL coach in the playoffs.
Yep.
And the thing that's hard for Belichick is you can't separate him from Brady. Like, the thing that will always be hard with them is they are the overlapping part of a Venn diagram. Like, you can't evaluate them on their own. They each make the other better. But, you know, at a certain point you can't get so nitpicky that you try to drill down into every single coach's, you know, personnel and quarterback and staff. And you just have to kind of take the product that they put out and just evaluate it at face value.
Yeah, post-Lombardi. Go ahead, Jayme.
I was just going to say, I think with Belichick, you do at least have that year without Brady. You know, and you do have the 4 games this year. So, like, he is so tied to that. But I feel like every time that they've had to take Brady away, the team somehow keeps going. And I think that is a testament to him. You like him a lot more than I do, but I think that's just because I don't like weird-looking hoodies. I think that I'm just being blind. But, you know, I don't think anyone else could lose their start that level of a quarterback and still go 11-5 with some, you know, a quarterback that when he goes to his next team just fails. Not fails, but, you know, flounders and then fails.
Yeah, I'd throw in a big vote for Bill Walsh as a post-Lombardi coach that you could say probably was a great coach, yeah, without a doubt.
Because he not only had the good coaching his players, but Bill Walsh coached coaches so well. I mean, where would we be with our NFL coaches if we didn't have Bill Walsh to start that tree? Like, none of us would have coaches. There'd be like 2 people coaching.
He gave us the West Coast offense, which literally changed the league beyond a shadow of a doubt. And, I mean, he gave us the modern Packers offense, really.
Oh, absolutely. So let's transition this conversation one more place, and I think this is another interesting one that could be up for some discussion. When Brett Favre finished his career, there was a lot of people who were making top 10 lists, and they were trying to say, okay, all-time quarterbacks. And I always remember Brett Favre was kind of sneaking in, like after 2007, he was kind of sneaking in. People were starting to put him at, like, number 7, number 8 all-time, obviously behind the Montanas and the other great quarterbacks. And I always remember that kind of after he kind of finished his career, he kind of snuck out of the top 10, or he always kind of sits around that 10 mark. Aaron Rodgers is a player who may be considered a great quarterback, who may have been maybe the type of player who's changed this game to a degree, or has played it at such a high efficient level to a degree that I don't know if we've seen that from other quarterbacks before. Assuming he were to finish the season and win a Super Bowl, do you think that cements him in with some of the legendary names that we see in the top 10 of all time?
You love to ask these type of questions, don't you?
I do. I love actually to get answers to them too, but I digress.
I think that go ahead. I'm still formulating my thought.
Well, I was gonna stutter for a little while. I think I struggled because I remember going back, when CD, like you were saying, when Brett Favre was nearing the end of his career, and I just remember, after he retired the first time, logging on to ESPN and doing my own rankings. They'd give you like 15 pictures and you ranked them, and then you pressed enter and you saw where your rankings fit with everyone else's. And my first couple of rankings was like, when I thought about it, I was like, oh, Favre is definitely top 10. And then I looked at all the people they were giving me, and it's like, oh, I forgot about that guy. And that guy, and that guy. Wait, where am I going to put Favre? Okay, and it's the same thing, like trying to squeeze them in. And so when you ask, like, Rodgers top 10, and I think of what Rodgers done is his accuracy, his precision, his interesting way he leads teams, the fact that he has done it without all the interceptions, the fact that he has done it, and I did knock on wood after saying the I word, after he's done it with the variety of different wide receivers and a lot of nobodies. I think that's some of the stuff when, like, right, especially later in Brett Favre's career, where, like, he had Robert Ferguson catching the ball. Look at that. And so you kind of think about all those things and go, yeah, he has to be up there. Like, he's a sure Hall of Famer. He has to be top 10. And then when I really sit down and think about that list, it's hard to figure out where to put him in. And because I felt like I was so biased and just so eager to throw Favre in that top 10, that I'm now, like, more hesitant of, like, no, I need to take my time and really analyze it. Like, sit down and, like, go back and watch old game footage or something for all the other people.
Right, and there's definitely a recency bias, I think, with these.
Yeah, because I feel like when we think of top 10s, we're like, oh, Peyton Manning, oh, Tom Brady, oh, Aaron Rodgers. I'm like, wait, but the top 10 of all time, like, 3 of them really are right now? I mean, I know Peyton,
right,
like, really, you're going to tell me? Yeah, you're really going to tell me that a third of them, and, like, CD just put the link in our chat, and I'm looking at, like, also Drew Brees is on there? Like, we can't have everybody who's played right now. I mean, Johnny U, you've got Montana, you've got Steve Young. I mean, you've got all these people, and, I will always argue for Bart Starr to be up there. You've got the different ways that the games, quarterbacking was then versus now. How can you say out of this, we're limiting to 10, that a third to a half of them are currently playing right now?
And that's so biased towards the way the game has changed in terms of the vertical passing game and just these guys who are getting bigger and stronger every year and just throwing all over the field. But Bart Starr did what he did in an era where you ran the football. You had smash-mouth football. And I think that we can't allow sort of our recency bias of like, well, yeah, the NFL is a passing league. Well, it didn't used to be. And guys like Starr really just did some incredible things that would still be held in high regard even today with today's passing games, let alone the fact that they did it in a run-first era.
And it's an era conversation I think you can have, but let's also be honest. It's like anything else. I mean, we can take Don Hudson, who, I still will say greatest wide receiver of all time, and I'll put him number 1. But you put him on the field today, and there are probably backup wide receivers who may outperform him just simply because Players are bigger, they are stronger, they are faster, they are more precise, they have speed that players like that didn't have 50, 60 years ago. So the recency bias, yes, may be a bias, but it also may just be the fact that there was this sudden burst of incredible accuracy that we never saw before. You may remember 20 years ago, 10 years ago, if you saw a quarterback just sniffing 100, I mean, it was a miracle. I mean, that was like Steve Young. But then all of a sudden, boom, you started having Drew Brees and these guys suddenly passing with incredible accuracy and no interceptions, and it was brand new. This didn't really happen before. So this is kind of a new era of quarterback that, with the accuracy that we see from Aaron Rodgers, but we saw this from the Tom Brady's for years that maybe we didn't see before. So recency bias, yeah, but the position itself has evolved and become something that, boy, you take Tom Brady and put him on a 1950s team, what would happen? But Joe Montana's still my number one, so either way. Jersey Al, you're awfully quiet.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a bit wiped today.
That's okay. It's a lot of thinking here today.
Not contributing very much. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Well, this would really be a great postseason podcast topic when we're done with in-season stuff to discuss, too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
although now CD has me thinking of, like, Tom Brady, like, with his size and his accuracy just showing up in the 50s, like, hey, guys.
I know.
And, like, what would happen? Like, so when you stopped and paused for Al to talk, I was also just like, wow, that'd be funny. We should do that. How can we do that? And, like, that, my mind went way, I wasn't even here for a good couple minutes.
Like a Back to the Future style. He just, like, walks in with a Letterman jacket, and he's like, all right, guys, I'm going to show you some things you've never seen.
All right. Well, before we hit the Hot Pockets, I just wanted to read to you this little article I found from Atlanta. There's a little bar down there, little bar down there called Park Tavern that announced that it was going to be hosting a Green Bay Packers pep rally, which incidentally happens everywhere. I mean, Dallas had a bar that hosted a party. I think Seattle had one. So there's always a bar that's there that is a Packer bar, someone who, comes from Wisconsin, Packer fans, they do it. Complete with appearances by Mark Murphy, everything like that. This bar has now been forced to issue an apology for offending Falcons fans and is now no longer going to do the Packers pep rally, apparently.
You sure about that last part?
Actually, no, I'm not.
Yeah, I think they're still
kind of
going
reading the article and just making sure. They're probably contracted to do it. I'm sure I think it's Packers sponsored.
Yeah.
Well, I love people who think they can tell a business person what to do with their business. I really love that. Something near and dear to my heart.
Now you've got Al going. Here he is.
Good. Well, someone had to wake him up here.
You woke me up.
The beast. Release the Kraken.
I mean, here's the guy. He's got a bar. He's trying to make a living. He's got a great opportunity to make some money from a professional football team, and a bunch of whiny fans are going to complain.
Well, and I mean, not every city, there's usually pregame pep rallies for a lot of the games, and sometimes they're at Packer bars, but they're not always. Like, the Dallas one wasn't at the big Packers bar. It wasn't at Burnett, and
yeah, it was at, Billy's or whatever.
Yeah, and, the one before the Super Bowl, and granted, you're not playing the hometown, that was at House of Blues. And, I mean, it wasn't the pep rally, but, a lot of the players were there. They did the Inside the Huddle taping. I mean, that's what bars do before big games. And, yeah, it would make a lot more sense if it was the Packers bar and everyone knew it. But, it is. You're going to make money, and you're going to get people. You're going to get the sponsorship and the contract with the team or, their marketing people. But then there's also an influx of people in your city. And there's all this talk about the revenue that games bring to cities. And this is really one of the few times you get that extra revenue because a mass influx of people are actually coming. And who wouldn't want to take advantage of it? These Packer fans are going to be in your city. You could have them all spread out in your city drinking. and eating, or you could invite them all to just your place and get them all there. Who wouldn't want to do that? At the same time, if a Green Bay bar had a Giants night, I also might be like, what? I mean, I wouldn't, like, call them names and stuff, but while CD was telling the story, I remembered right before the Giants game, there was a picture in Milwaukee that somebody had put a giant baseball hat on the Fonz statue. And Milltown Bucky actually tweeted it to the Milwaukee Police Department, like joking. And the Milwaukee Police Department, in my favorite tweet of all time, since Twitter has been in existence, responded with like, oh my God, that is awful. We will do our best to apprehend the person, but thankfully it looks like that vandalism is not common. And it was just this like, they went with the joke and they were playing off of it. But, I mean, that's what you do. And so, like, I feel like I saw that and was like, oh, my God, get that off of the font. That's awful. Don't do that to my city. This is our city. It's us. So I wouldn't fault them. I wouldn't, like, yell at them, but I might be like, dude, I'll come back next week, just not this week.
Yeah, I think the thing it comes down to me is, like, I try very hard. Like, I make my living writing and talking about football. That is how I earn my livelihood. My life revolves around football, for better or for worse. But at the end of the day, it literally really is just a game. And that's why I don't cry when they lose in the playoffs anymore. And that's why when the off-season is the off-season, I spend time with my family. I go to yoga. I hike. And I think that for people who live in a city that could really use an economic, not saying it needs one, but just saying, like, anytime there's an event in your city, there's an economic boost that comes with that. And that's a very real, tangible thing that helps many people. And so this is a football game, and a rivalry or a, competition is sort of like a fake construct, but the revenue boost that your city gets from hosting these types of events are very real and will help a lot of people long after football is done being played for the year. So that's sort of the barometer I always use is this a real problem, or is this a we are treating football too seriously problem?
All right. Well, we've gone almost an hour and 20 minutes, guys. This is crazy. A lot to talk about. You know what it's time for, though?
Hot Pocket.
Al, we're going to start off with you before.
Okay.
Just as long as we got your adrenaline up.
Yeah, exactly. As long as I'm still awake, you might as well get me before I pass out here. Excuse me. A little under the weather. So, we're doing Hot Pockets, right? Okay. My Hot Pocket is that comes afterwards. I know you love the sting, but that comes afterwards. Patience. Mine is downfield interception opportunities, okay? This is going to be a game that we're going to have to win like the Packers did in 2010, okay? They're going to have to pick off Matt Ryan a couple of times as he's throwing downfield, especially late in the game to preserve the win. But our defensive backs must catch the ball. We drop way too many interception opportunities. This is not one where this is not going to be a game where we can afford to. With the shape that our team is in injury-wise, we've got to take advantage of these opportunities and win like we did in 2010. So that was my Hot Pocket.
Mm-hmm. Hot Pocket.
Jayme, you're up.
Okay. I'm really glad that I'm going after Al because mine's kind of similar. All the times that I feel like we complained about Gunter on Sunday, and I say we in the royal we because I didn't. There was a couple people on board like, he is awful. He should never be played. And we were like, but he's had really good games. He's had some busted plays. He didn't have the help. So I feel like all of those plays that were so frustrating, he never looked back for the ball. And I think that, what Al's saying is, like, we have to make those interceptions. We can't keep dropping them. You have to go for that. You also just have to be aware of where the ball is. Turn your head around. If you're going to be defending the pass, I felt like there was at least 2 times where Gunter, if he had just turned around, he could have defended the play better. He could have batted it down. He could have actually made a better tackle with the receiver going for the hands because he would have known when it was happening. And it just was very frustrating because I get that we give up a lot of space. I guess that we give up some speed and some size and experience, but just turn the dang head around, watch the ball. Also, then when you accidentally bump into them, you're not going to get a call because you were playing the ball. Look for the ball, and that's my Hot Pocket.
Hot Pocket.
All right, I'll go next. I read an article this week just about Julius Peppers and just how laid back and how much he's enjoying the ride. And he has not been the Julius Peppers maybe of the last 2 years, making big impacts every game. We see him every once in a while. He gets in there, does something. But let's be honest, he's 37 years old, and this is probably his last best chance at a Super Bowl ring. But then the reality is, if you go back even to 1996, win a Super Bowl, and then, you lost the one the next year to Denver, and how many of those players said, we'll have another chance. We're going to be in this thing forever. We'll come back in it. I mean, look at us. We're just the best team in the league. We're going to be like Dallas. We're going to have a dynasty. And no players from that team were around when the Packers went to the Super Bowl next. This doesn't happen very often. And the fact that a handful of these players who are still on the team from 2010 might get another chance this year. The chances are they may not get another chance for 5 or 10 or 20 years after this. So without going into that much depression, this is kind of a last best chance for Julius Peppers and possibly a 33-year-old Aaron Rodgers, that they're putting it together. They've gotten themselves deep in the playoffs. I really do believe you're seeing Aaron Rodgers playing with the level of a man at age 33 in the NFL, playing quarterback, who may be realizing that this may be his last best chance too. And there are times he is carrying this team on his back. A couple other players in there too. Jared Cook is 29. Jordy Nelson is 31. You never know when you're going to get to your next one. So I'm hoping, as the veteran team, and I think we saw that against Dallas, which is this really young team that probably does have a lot of high hopes for the future with Dak and Ezekiel Elliott. These are rookies. They got plenty of years left. This might be the last best chance for your Green Bay Packers. And really hope they take it all the way. That's my Hot Pocket.
Hot Pocket.
Michelle.
All right, the rear. So my Hot Pocket's really simple. It's your time, Clay Matthews. We saw Clay get off to a really strong start this season. He had a sack in 3 of his first 4 games. He was, really benefiting from Nick Perry being back to the lineup from Julius Peppers. And then, he did have that 3-game streak where he sat out due to injuries, and he's kind of been he was on a snap count toward the end of the year. He hasn't been at 100%, but we've just sort of seen, Perry kind of take over as the dominant pass rusher this year, which is great. It's great that we have Perry, but even if Clay's not doing things that necessarily show up on a stat sheet like sacks or passes defensed, we should never really be seeing things from him like that horrible spin move we saw from Ezekiel Elliott, who just blew his mind when he spun past him. And so I think that Clay, I still think, is probably one of the emotional centers of that defense, along with Mike Daniels and Julius Peppers. I think that this is a time where this defense could really use some leadership from him, could really look to him to set an example both in the locker room and on the field. It's time for them, I think, to just really have fun with this, and for Clay to really just kind of do something to impact the outcome of this game and kind of, cement his place in history as a great Packers defender and kind of put a little bit of the inconsistency of this past year behind him. So that is my
Hot Pocket.
Well timed with the sting there. Yeah.
Nailed everyone.
Very proud.
That's the way it's supposed to be done. Without a doubt.
Oh,
you're running the table with that.
I'm basking in the glory. Speaking of which, let's see if I can find my next thing on time.
Cheesehead Radio. Packers game predictions.
It's the NFC Championship game. Green Bay Packers probably weren't supposed to be here, but they are. Fantastic. Heading down to Georgia, taking on the high-powered offense of the Falcons, led by very possible MVP of the NFL, Matt Ryan. How are our Packers going to fare on the road in Atlanta? We're going to start with Michelle.
All right. So I think that basically this game comes down to the fact that both quarterbacks are deadly and both secondaries are not. So I really think sort of similar to what Al was saying earlier, one interception could decide this entire game. So Micah Hyde or HaHa Clinton-Dix, step up, get it done. That could just be the game decider right there. So I'm going to predict Hyde or Clinton-Dix comes out, nabs the ball, and just seals the game for them. Packers 28, Falcons 27.
All right. I'm C.D. Angeli, and I am going to do my traditional pick. I think I found a little superstition I'm going to stick with. I predicted it about as close as you could possibly predict it, and I can definitely say that thing felt awfully close all last week. It was thrilling. It was a thrilling win. If it was a loss, it would have been a thrilling loss, but it was fantastic. And this week be even more thrilling. If we're going to go to the Super Bowl, let's make it a hell of a ride. I'm going to say Green Bay Packers 25, Atlanta Falcons 24.999.
Mm-hmm. Going that extra digit.
Every week we're going to the thousands place now. Next week, hopefully, it'll be the 10,000s place. We'll see. Jersey Al, you're up.
Yep, I am up. Okay. I am going for the high-scoring affair. I'm not as confident, really, as I was for the Dallas game. I actually felt pretty good that they would beat Dallas. This game, to me, is pretty much a toss-up. A lot will have to go in the Packers' favor for them to win this game, especially with the injury situation that they're in with their secondary and with their wide receivers now. Going back to my hot pocket, the defense is going to have to pick off some passes from Matt Ryan and keep them off the scoreboard somewhat, but it's still going to be a high-scoring affair. Packers 37, Falcons 31.
And Jayme.
Okay. I feel, and maybe this is because I didn't actually get to ever sit down and watch the first game, but I vaguely followed along with it while running around a shelter, and I feel like if the Packers could have put up such a good fight in that first game with being in their lull and with all those people injured, I feel better going into this week than I did going into Dallas. I didn't feel good going into the Giants game. I definitely didn't feel good last week. I feel good about this. I feel so good about this, I'm almost, worried how good I feel. I also am aware that I used to be very superstitious, I yellow M&Ms for offensive plays, green M&Ms for defensive plays. You walk toward the TV during kickoff returns, keep it moving, all sorts of weird things. Cut back on a lot of that. I realize I'm an adult. What I do does not affect how the Packers play. But it's 28-21. It's going to be 28-21, maybe for the rest of my life, because Packers have been winning. Every time I say Packers 28, whoever they're playing 21. So Packers 28, Falcons 21, Packers 28, Steelers or Patriots 21. That's the way the rest of the season's going.
Sounds like a clean sweep. We're all picking the Packers. Feeling pretty good for next week, guys?
As good as you can feel. I mean, it's the playoffs. Yeah. You have to pick them, right? Otherwise, why are we doing this?
I think we're all going to be back here again next week, guys. It's going to be great. All right, let's take her out.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight on Cheesehead Radio. Make sure to head on over to PackersTalk.com, where you can explore several unique Packers podcasts. Please follow @PackersTalkNet on Twitter and like the Packers Talk page on Facebook. Cheesehead Radio and all the Packers Talk podcasts are available on iTunes. Just Google Packers Talk iTunes and you'll find it. Be sure to subscribe and please, please, please leave us a good review if you can. You can also listen in by using Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, or your favorite podcasting app and search for Packers Talk. Finally, please be sure to support our sponsor. They've been great. They've been with us all year long. They've a great place for tickets, Ticket King. You can find them online at theticketking.com. That's theticketking.com. That's a wrap. Go Pack, go. Beat the Falcons.
Thanks for joining us tonight, guys. Good night. Go Pack, go.
Good night.
Good
Go
night.
Pack.
Good night.